In this brief video, we're going to walk through how to use the Excel scorecard files for entering your SkillsUSA competition results as a judge or technical committee. On the USB stick that you received, you should have probably two files if you're doing secondary and post-secondary combined. In this example, we're going to be using Electronics Technology Contest. There is Electronics Technology P for post-secondary and S for secondary. They're just Microsoft Excel files, so if you double click on one of them, it should open up in Excel. We're going to look at the post-secondary one first. When you double click that file to open it, you'll see the scorecard. The skill areas that you'll be judging are on the left-hand side with the max points there in column E. The contestant numbers are listed along the top. Since this is post-secondary at the national event, they use contestant numbers that start with 500, 501, 502, 503 for each contestant number. And then the skill areas there on the bottom. On the left-hand side, you just enter whatever scores you want. 125, 130. I don't want to go above that max because if I do put in 250, it will turn red, indicating that's too big a number. I meant to put 195 and 186 and 282. And you just put in whatever scores you want for each of those contestants. Now, if you put in a number that's too big, like we saw, you'll show it red. And if you put in a number that's very, very small, like in this case, the soldering skill is worth 200 points. If this student did really poorly, 35 indicates that the score is really, really low, less than 25% of the total. Let me scroll over here to the right, and you can see at the top there's a legend that tells you what these color codes mean. Pink means there's scores missing. That teal blue means you have less than 25% of the max. Red means your score is too high, and if you intentionally want to score 0, it will turn gray. So that 35 points is less than 25% of 200. It's totally fine, but if you accidentally mistyped it, I meant to type 135, that's why it turns blue like that. If you mean to type in 126, but I accidentally typed 26, it turns bluish teal there, so you'll see maybe that's not right. I'll give you a way to double check that. And then if the student did a terrible job, in other words, they just did not complete this exam at all and they get 0 points, put a 0 in that cell and it will turn gray, indicating that you intentionally said that they should have gotten 0 points. And you'll also notice as we continue entering these scores, the numbers at the bottom show up to indicate who's got gold, silver, and bronze. And those will just change as you continue adding. I'm going to pause here and continue typing these scores in and show you how it looks at the end. So there we've filled in all the rest of the numbers there, and you can see at the bottom it'll show you in color coding who is gold, who is silver, and who is bronze. And on the bottom left there it'll tell you first, second, third place and who those contestant numbers. So I can tell that contestant 827 or contestant 512 with 827 points should have gotten the bronze medal. And that's perfect. When I save that, it'll save it right back to the USB stick, and I'm ready to move on to the next contest. Now, the secondary one, we're going to show you a few more advanced concepts that are probably in use for this, at least for the national conference. These may not be in use for your state conferences. But for the national conference, we're using two new concepts around judge tabs and around comments. So we've had judge tabs for a while. Down at the bottom, you'll see there's now multiple sheet tabs here in Excel. There's a totals tab, and there's judge 1, judge 2, judge 3, and judge 4. The idea with these judge tabs is you can type in scores for each judge, and then when you get to the totals tab, the system will automatically average those out for you. So let me just put in a couple of numbers here, and then we'll see what that looks like. Okay, so I filled in some more information here on judge tab number 1. You'll notice that contestant number 102 here only got 35 points on the test, so the number shows in that teal blue, meaning it was less than 25% of the total. And he also was not able to complete the soldering or breadboarding at all, so I've put in zeros there just by typing a 0 and it'll turn gray, so I know I intentionally put 0 in those cells. On judge 2, I'm going to switch to judge 2 now and put in some numbers there as well, and you'll see the totals tab then will average that information out. So contestant 101 had 879. Look back at Judge 2, contestant 101 had 907, and when I look at the totals tab, it will average those out. So it's averaging the totals of Judge 1 and Judge 2 and Judge 3 and however many judges you want. Then the other feature that I want to show you right quick is how this comments feature works. Let's go back to Judge number 1. This student who was not able to complete the soldering or breadboarding, it's probably a good idea to indicate why these are blank or 0. We really want to know, did the student not complete those, or did the judge just forget to give you a score? The advantage of this comments concept is you can put in details about that here below in the comments area. And you can just type in as much as you want here. You want to keep it relatively brief. You won't type in a huge paragraph here, but you can put in a sentence or two. I'm going to say student was unable to complete soldering or breadboarding components. And then over here, maybe I want, this student did so well, I'm going to spell out some things that he did really well. Soldering was really terrific, but breadboarding could have been more precise. The idea, there's 2 points behind these comments. You can give the comments, we specifically want them when you put a 0 in to know why is that a 0, but you can also use this to give positive constructive feedback back to the students. When I go to the totals page, you'll notice those comments automatically carry over as well. I just want to show you one other thing about the comments. If I go to contestant number 3, and just as an example, 103, I'm going to put on Judge 1, Judge 1 said this student did great. And then I'm going to go to Judge 2 for contestant 103 and put in a slightly different comment. Judge 2 thought the student was well prepared. When I go to the totals tab, you'll notice that it concatenates the comments from Judge 1 and Judge 2 into this box. So if you put comments, you can put comments in for all of your judges if you want, all the way through, and they'll all get concatenated on the totals tab. So the judge tabs work pretty well. They'll average out for you. A couple other things you can do if you need to. If you decide that you are not going to be able to do the soldering, or you can't provide 200 points for soldering, you want to change this number to 100, you can change those max points available. Of course, you want to be careful not to go over, these things now turned red because I had given him 200, but if I decide I can only count it out of 100, you may need to change that. The other thing you can do is most of the times we provide a couple of blank rows here, so if you want to have one other thing, electronic knowledge, let's say, you can add another item there. You can't insert new rows, but you can use the blank rows as you see fit to put in extra rows. You can't delete them, you can't add new rows, but if there's like about 3 or 4 blank rows here, you could spell those out further if you needed to. Notice that does change my max points to 1100 instead of 1000, so I might need to go back here and make some more adjustments to say, well, this can only be 250 because I want to keep that at, maybe this one becomes 100. So you have to change those because the national office wants those to be at 1,000 point total. So if you need to add some things there, you can. And finally, you can also change the wording. So if you decide that this soldering thing is actually a little bit more precise, you can call it soldering and joint welds. You can spell out more details there if you want. And we'll bring those back into the main system, and then when we show the scores on the website, that's what the students will see online. So let's go back to a quick review, some reminders. You can change those skill area names, and you can change the max point values. You want to put zeros in for no-shows or unused skill. If a student is a no-show, just put in all zeros. So if I go back to the Excel, let's say contestant number 107 was a no-show, just put zeros in all those skill areas for that guy, and that way we'll know. You can use the comments down here as well to say, so we know intentionally that person did not show up. Double check those contestant numbers. Sometimes if a student drops, the contestant numbers might not be sequential. Like if contestant 109 dropped out, this might go from 108 to 110, and there might not even be a 109. So just kind of double check as you're keying in the scores that you're putting them in the correct column. You can't add entirely new rows, but you can fill in those blank rows we've given you if you need more skill areas. On the totals tab, you cannot make changes. So remember how we were typing in all these numbers here for Judge 1 and Judge 2. We were typing in the comments. If you go to the Totals tab and you try and type in a number directly, you'll get an error message saying it's protected because we don't want you changing anything on the Totals tab. That's a formula that averages everything from the other sheets. And finally, if you are using the comments, be brief and remember that eventually the students may be able to see these comments online, so they're valuable for constructive feedback, and they're also valuable for clarifying why a student might have gotten 0 in something. But do bear in mind that at some point the state director or the students themselves may be able to see these comments, so you want to be as appropriate as possible. If you have questions about using the spreadsheets, you can reach out to the NLSC Registration Center if we're at the national conference. If you're using this for a state conference, you can reach out to your state director or email for support or call Mark Williams directly on the number there. Thanks, and I hope you have a great conference.